Barbecue. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Andy.
And hey, everybody listening at home. We are doing another episode of Boost, Booze, and Barbecue.
That's right.
Matter of fact, pretty sure this is episode 10, is it not?
It is episode 10.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. I can't believe we've been doing this.
That flew by.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just flying by.
Yeah.
And you know what helps it fly by is all of our amazing listeners that have just been so engaged with us on Facebook, Boost, Booze, Barbecue, and on our website, www.boostboozebarbecue.com, and and sending us their questions and engaging on the posts and liking, commenting, sharing. Just the support that we've gotten has been so incredible.
Yeah, it's been really fun. And I've always been pretty dialed back on the whole social media front. So this is a little bit of a new territory for me, but I'm having a lot of fun, having a good time. I'm getting out there a little bit more, posting a little bit more on the Facebook, and I am going to be popping up on the Twitter.
Ooh.
Because funny story. So a few weeks ago, I'm thinking about, getting my Twitter account back up and going. I've had a Twitter account for a really long time, but I've never really been that active on it. In fact, I've completely gotten away from it for a long time. So I'm thinking, I've got all these little kind of random tidbits of stuff that I've written down. But they're not really things that we could do like a whole episode on. They're just kind of random thoughts that I have. But I've been keeping track of them because I think some of them are pretty funny. I mean, I crack myself up on a regular basis. So, the other day I'm thinking I need a good hashtag though. Like if I'm gonna tweet out my random thoughts, I need a good hashtag, and I'm trying to think of one, but nothing really popped into my head. So I was just like, whatever, I'll think about it later. So no joke, that same day, later in that afternoon, I meet up with Andy and some other friends, and we're, talking, having a time. I think we were...
The drinks were flowing.
Yeah, we were sipping on some Bushmills Black Bush, that kind of thing. And Andy comes up to me. He puts his hand on my shoulder and he's like, Jojo, check this out. This is something I just came up with today. Now, keep in mind that he and I had not spoken much at all. I think the only text I sent you that day was, "Are you on your way?" And you were like, "Yes." Like, that was the only communication we had that day.
I had no clue you were mulling
He had no
around.
idea that this was bouncing around in my head, this Twitter thing. And he puts his hand on my shoulder. He's like, "Check this out. I just thought this up." And he goes, "When life is short and racing is life, hashtag JOLO." And my first thought was, oh my gosh, no way. I was just thinking about this. And then what he had said kind of sunk in, and I was like, hashtag JOLO? I hate it.
And of course, I'm standing there with this big grin on my face, like I know
dopey grin on his face, like
I knew she was going to hate it.
Knew it, and I was like, "Oh no, I hate it so much." But as the evening progressed.
Wow.
Whoa! What kind of party were we at now? As the evening progressed, it got kind of bounced around, with our friends a little bit. It kind of started to catch on, and at one point we kind of looked at each other and we were like, "We're gonna have to use this, aren't we?"
100%.
100%. So,
here's the general rule of thumb. The more you hate it, the more likely it is that we have to use it.
Yeah. That seems accurate. So watch out for my, hashtag JOLOs on the Twitter here. Come on. I'm going to start spitting those out here, in the next few days or so. So keep an eye out for that. Tweet me back. Maybe you've got your own hashtag JOLOs that you want to share. I would love to read them. And just have fun with it. It's a joke, obviously. It's nothing too serious. So, keep it simple, keep it fun, keep it light, and, hashtag JOLO.
I love it. I just thought of one.
What is it?
When you've modified your car so much that you have to get a new daily, and then 6 months later, you have to get a new daily because you've modified your daily too much. Hashtag JOLO.
JOLO. I would totally do that.
Oh yeah, we've both been there.
Yeah.
We've both been there multiple times.
I know. Like the last time I seriously considered getting a new daily. You know what I wanted to get?
What?
A new MX-5 RF Neon.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
That's not a daily.
That would have made a great daily.
That would have been a race car in a hot second.
Mm-hmm. You know what you would have done was you would have gotten a 2-car trailer instead of a 1-car trailer.
Yeah.
Why do you have 2 cars on there? Like a his and hers? No, I'm running the first one in the morning and I'm running the second one.
Different classes. Yeah. Hey, there's an idea. Uh-oh. Seed planted.
I'll tell you what. It reminds me of an autocross that Coy and I were at, my cousin who I raced with for years. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking, this was like 2002, 3, 4, something like that. It's
way
back in the day. Mm-hmm. And we were at an autocross. I want to say it was at Hoodoo back when they were doing those.
God, I miss that.
I know. What a great venue.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he was running street mod and he had slick tires. It was on his Honda Civic hatchback.
Oh yeah, that was a cool car.
Oh, that was
a great autocross car.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was a 93 or a 4, I think. Mm-hmm. It was an SI, so it had the 4-wheel disc brakes, and he did the B18 C5 engine swap, and then there was something weird about the Japanese GSR had a little different gearing ratio that was better for autocross, so he got one of those transmissions and it had a helical limited slip in it and some stuff like that. So
yeah, it was awesome.
It was a very cool car and very, very fast. Mm-hmm. And he had these wheels that were 13 by 10.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I don't remember the Hoosiers he ran on it. I want to say they were 255.
They were ridiculous.
45 13s. They were just, the thing looked like a Hot Wheels car,
you
know. And we were at this autocross and we'd finished racing and he was swapping those tires off and putting his other tires on. But since we were street racing a lot at the time, we both ran our comps on the street all the time. And so he was taking those slicks off and he was putting some Falcon Zenith 615s back on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this guy goes walking by and he's like, "Oh, are you running the street tire class for the afternoon?" And Coy's like, "No." And the guy stops.
Yes.
Well, the dude stops and he's like, "Well, so you just run those on the street?" And Coy's like, "Yeah." And it was one of Coy's classic in the moment one-liners. The guy was just like, "That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." And Coy looks up at him and goes, "Hey man, if you want to be hardcore, you got to be hardcore." Hashtag Jolo.
Hashtag Jolo. Oh my gosh, that's funny. I did actually drive around on my Falcon Zenith after the last autocross I did a few weeks ago. I just continued to drive on my Falcons for like 2 more weeks because I was just having a good time driving my car with that particular setup. So I did.
Well, you got that brand new suspension. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
1000%.
Yes.
When I had my all-wheel drive turbo protege, I remember letting a friend of mine drive it and he was going pretty easy on it. And we were going around a pretty easy corner and he was in 3rd gear and it was just at the right RPM where he, put his foot down on the gas because we were about 2/3 of the way through the corner and, boost came on and it lit up all 4 tires.
Oh, no way.
And he had to put a pretty significant amount of counter steer into it. And then of course, as soon as he came around that, he's like, "I ain't rigging your car. I'm just going to pull over and let you do your thing." And that was on the all season tires.
Yeah. And
so from then on, I only ever ran our comps.
Yeah.
I was going through like a set of, actually I kept running the RT 615s, RT 615Ks as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
It's just a really, really good all-around tire. I know they're not the tire of choice in the street tire class anymore, but if you're doing actual street driving, they're, an incredible performer.
Yeah. And they are, if you're autocrossing in the rain at all, they're the best tire you can run in the rain, honestly. I've heard many autocrossers say that.
Yes, absolutely. I remember when the Hankook RS3s came out and they were kind of positioned to dethrone the Falcon Zenith. And then people started realizing that they suck in the rain.
Right.
And it was like, oh, wow. All right, well.
Yeah. And when you live in the Willamette Valley, I mean, the front end of your season is rainy and the tail end of your season is rainy. So, 2/3 of your season is wet.
Exactly.
So, if you want a set of tires, you need something that'll perform in the wet as well as the dry. And granted, they're not the best autocross tire when it's dry. They're just not. But I can't really afford more than one set of tires right now. So there you go.
Well, if you're just starting out, if you're, you've got your 92 Miata and you're just trying to figure out how to drive and you need something that's going to train you well, those RT615s are a fantastic tire for that.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they're just all the way around.
Yep.
Fantastic. It doesn't matter if you're in the dry or the wet or whatever. Heck, I've run those tires, when it was snowing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they did great in the snow.
Right.
But,
you got from A to B.
I got from A to B.
Yeah.
With a whole lot of countersteer.
Yeah.
Boy, speaking of countersteer, the booze of the day has got me super excited.
Yes.
Because, and actually this may be why we're starting off with so much car talk.
Maybe.
We are drinking Harvesttown Brewery Old Engine Oil Black Ale. It's a product of Scotland, and it is thick, roasty, toasty, chocolatey, malty, and I love this beer.
It's delicious. Cheers.
Hear, hear.
Yum.
So complex. So much going on in this beer. What do you get right on the front?
I get kind of the roasty maltness. I think.
It's a very complex flavor.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
It's just got so much. It's not like chocolate in your face chocolate, but it's got a lot of that. Yeah. Like you said, dark malt. There's a little bit of like a burnt caramel aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's good.
I love this stuff, and it's not too terribly expensive.
No.
We'll go ahead and post a photo up of the bottle and a little bit about the beer. And if somebody wants to go out and check it out, I highly recommend it.
Me too.
Love it.
Yummy.
Well, speaking of beers, we actually did something pretty fun this morning.
We did. Yeah.
Headed over to Corvallis Brewing Supply. And I love the guys over there. Super knowledgeable. Everybody's nice, friendly.
Yeah.
If you have something that you're looking at, you think, hey, I kind of want to try that. Buy it. Just pop it open.
Yeah.
Give it a whirl.
Yeah. They've got their liquor license, does not only allow them to sell beer, but it allows them to pour beer. So if you, like Andy said, find something on the shelf there, hand them your money and they will open it for you right then and there.
Absolutely. And Joel, the owner, such a super nice guy.
Really nice. Yeah.
But we were doing their event today called the Cellar Beer Sale. And, it's where they pull a bunch of beers out of their basement that they've been sitting on aging. And I love that idea. I love that they're kind of doing it for you because, I've tried to age my beers and I'm bad about it. I guess I just lack self-control.
I know. I just end up drinking them. I just I stared at this for like 6 months. I want to pop it open.
6 months. Wow.
I know. I don't make it very far at all.
You've got some self-control because I've burned through mine a lot quicker than that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I do have a bottle that I have been very diligently hanging on to. It's a Schmaltz Brewing, Jubla Ale, but, it was brewed in 2007 or 8. And, just been hanging on to it. Kind of want to see what's going to happen with it. Their beers age super, super well. And, I was able to snag one more bottle. I think it was their reunion ale today. Unfortunately, they're not bringing that beer to Oregon really anymore. Okay. But I think that 4 tables out today. And, just from one end to
four
another.
tables like end to end and just covered with bottles. Yeah.
Oh, such a great sight to see.
Yeah. It was really cool.
I didn't even get a chance to say hi to anybody when I first walked in. Like they were doing beer tastings and stuff. I walked in and I was like, oh, hey, I'll go say hi. Ooh.
What's this?
I did my customary, get a case. It all goes on the shelf, and I'm going to lie to myself and say that I'm going to hang on to it all.
Right. Yeah.
But you know what it gives us is it gives us a really nice supply of some really eclectic beers that we can start bringing in for Booze of the Day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I picked up about a half a case of stuff. So
well, your husband home brews, so I know that you're not going to take home a whole bunch of beer because it's just beer on beer.
Right.
Not that that's a bad thing, but, everything in moderation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hashtag Jello.
Wow. But that was a lot of fun. And, it was kind of a good, beginning and rev up to today's episode.
It was, yeah.
We've got some really interesting stuff, that we want to talk about today. Last episode, we started talking about the Mazda Skyactiv X engine and,
which I'm super excited about.
Yeah. Yeah. And because Joe mentioned how much, thought and research she's done into the whole lithium thing, just as a self-edification.
Yeah.
But now we get to learn from her.
Yeah.
And,
well, I hope. I don't know. I don't know if that's really the right word. You get to listen.
Listen in.
Listen in.
All of this stuff is just so polarizing, and so you have to take it for what it is, and you have to look at the way that the research is done, and the way that the conclusions are made. Right. There is no one size fits all. We are in a world that uses resources, and that's just the way it is. There is no truly 100% renewable resource. Right. You're never going to produce a windmill or a solar panel or a nuclear power station that you can completely deconstruct and regain 100% of the resources that went into it.
It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
Yeah. This is real life. So, yeah.
But, having said that, we do see, some of the atrocities that happen with oil spills and heavy metal mines. Right. And, the plastics that are going into the ocean. And so we do need to be aware and conscious that, hey, some of this stuff is not good. Right.
Yeah. There's got to be something that is at least better. It might not be a 100% golden solution, but it could be better.
Well, and always moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, something's better than nothing, right?
Exactly. Don't step backwards.
Right.
Step forwards.
Right.
And that's how you change the world.
Yeah.
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 So I'm really excited. I'm just going to go ahead and let you get into it.
Okay.
Because I'm really excited to hear.
Yeah. And feel free to interject because you have some great thoughts on this as well.
So, well, I have some opinions.
You have. I was going to say, yeah. Let me preface this entire thing by saying, pause the episode, go into your kitchen, and just grab a handful of salt, and just get ready to start nibbling on that throughout this whole segment because I am going to get a little bit opinionated, and I do recognize the fact that these are my own opinions, and I am welcome to them, but you are also welcome to ignore them. So take it with a grain of salt. I guess is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
So this kind of really started for me a couple episodes ago when we were talking about the new Remick, and I mentioned something along the lines of, I feel like sort of against my will, electric vehicles might be the future of the automotive industry. And, it has a lot to do with being raised around classic American muscle cars and drag racing, and, going to car shows and all that kind of thing.
Well, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but there is a little bit of credence to that because, when the automobile was in its infancy, at the turn of the 20th century, there were a number of vehicles that were electric powered.
Good point.
There was at one point as many electric vehicles on the road as there were, not gasoline as we know it, but internal combustion.
Internal combustion.
They were running off of, kerosene oil and peanut oil and, take your pick.
Right.
And of course, the realization that you could use, some of the byproducts of kerosene and lamp oil making, to produce gasoline.
Right.
That's really what helped propel, the gasoline engine into the front of the propulsion systems. And of course, just the discovery of some large oil fields in America. That of course helped propel that forward as well.
Of course.
But the idea of having a full electric vehicle isn't anything
it's not
that's new.
It's been around for a while. So, but, and while that may be true, there's still a part of me that is just not convinced that it is the solution. For example, so the first thing that I went to was lithium mining. That was the first rabbit hole I went down. And I kind of started to notice that I might be a little bit late to the party, but I'm kind of glad that I am, because the overall, undertone, I guess, of the information that is available today versus information from, 10, 20 years ago, is that the people are just kind of shrugging, so to speak. They're like, well, yep, here it is. This is the way it works, and I don't know what you want to do about it. So here it is. There was a ton of information on, I started with lithium mining, and then I got into nickel mining and smelting. And there's everything from, science articles to investment websites. There's all kinds of really good information, and it all seems very, open and transparent, and they're not trying to hide anything or try and talk it up or talk it down either way. It's kind of presented in a real kind of a neutral way. And I appreciate that about, being a little bit late to the party, so to speak. So, so I started with that, and then, you start hearing, bits and pieces about the carbon footprint. And so I went down that rabbit hole a little ways. I went down the recycling of the batteries trail. So I've come to this conclusion. My point is, I'm not convinced, because there are a couple of pretty significant stumbling blocks that I don't see them being overcome willingly. The first one is, it does have to do with the mining, and the bottom line on the mining of these resources is it's not any worse, and it's not like it's new. It's not like they haven't been around forever, but the demand on these resources has dramatically increased as of late because of the electric vehicle market boom. Manufacturers are being pressured to offer an alternative, so they're turning to electric because it's more available now, and people are buying them. So the demand is just skyrocketing on this, and the reason why it's skyrocketing is because the other stumbling block I'm looking at is the recycling of the batteries. And it's not that it's impossible. It could be done now. It could be done today. Most of the battery, there are several companies that are able to recycle most of the battery right now. Like, they're already doing it. But it's a couple of companies, like worldwide. It's, maybe a handful. And
because it's very expensive.
It's very expensive. They're extracting the nickel and the cobalt. They're recycling the plastic. The lithium is ending up in a byproduct that they're not really doing anything with right now because it's just too expensive. And the fact of the matter is the materials that they are able to pull out of it are worth a fraction of the cost it takes to do the recycling and the extraction. So it's not that it can't be done. It's this that a company would not be able to stay in business long enough to get it done. They would run out of money.
Have you been able to tell, is it a diminishment of the return or is it diminishment of the element itself?
Both.
Really?
Yeah.
So like
from what I read, from what I kind of pieced together from different articles and stuff, is it's both. You're not able to take an end of life battery and recycle it into a brand new battery. You need several end of life batteries and recycle those into a new battery.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's one stumbling block that, they say that they're close. I don't think it would be an impossibility for, that code to be cracked or however you want to put it. And so that's not a huge deal, but, and until it is, I'm just not ready to jump on that bandwagon because you read about things like, a lithium solar pan mine in Chile where they're piping in something like 2/3 of the area's fresh drinking water.
Yeah. Taking away from where it's needed.
Yeah.
And putting it
yeah. Cause lithium naturally occurs in very dry parts of the world. And if you want to salt pan mine is essentially, it's just evaporation. So they're not using a ton of energy. They're basically using the sun, but it requires a lot of water. And if you're in a really dry part of the world, you don't exactly have a lot of water laying around. So you got to pipe it in, from miles away.
Which is very costly.
Yeah. Very costly. So,
but not only costly to pipe, but costly to the local populace that then is losing this chunk of their drinking water. Yeah.
And then, you also read about, there's a city in Russia. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce it, but there's a particular city in Russia. It's the most polluted city in the world because it has a very robust nickel mining and smelting operation.
Really?
Yeah. And it releases something like 350,000 tons of sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere every year. And, they have issues with the oxidized nickel overflowing into the rivers and turning the rivers red. Yeah, it's not good. And I feel like this is where the irony kind of starts to creep in a little bit for me. Folks, go ahead and get that grain of salt out and start munching away. Because what I see is these are things that your typical environmentalist or even decent human being, would be protesting against, picketing at the rally, but then they're going to get in their electric vehicle and drive themselves home.
Exactly.
So,
well, and not just that, but also sit and talk about how the U.S. needs all these new laws and regulations because we're such huge polluters. Well, not exactly.
Yeah, we're not exactly at the top of that list.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think about this really interesting article you sent to me, I don't know, a week or so ago when you were really doing a deep dive into this. We'll have a link to the article on boostbarbecue.com.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting perspective, and I have it right here. I'm trying to remember. Is this
the one I sent you where he's really not like a car guy, so to speak? He's more of like a scientist type. Yeah. This was a really well written article.
It was. Yeah. It was. It's called Why Electric Cars Are Always Green and Always Will Be. And, he says, being a scientist, which is what I like about this, he says right in it, I had to take some liberties with how I'm acquiring my data and making some assumptions and things like that. Now, in my opinion, there is a difference between, kind of a guess and an educated assumption.
Yeah, of course.
And while this person made a lot of educated assumptions, being a non-car person, I think that there are certain components that are being left out.
Yeah.
He talks about how one of his metrics is, he's assuming a 135,000 mile lifespan of a vehicle.
Yeah.
And of course we know that's not true.
That's not true.
No.
I drove down here today in a 1989 Toyota pickup that has 311,000 miles on it. So there you go. Exactly.
The car that we got rid of, before we moved was a 1991 Ford Festiva that had 300,000 miles on it. I loved that car.
Yeah.
What a fantastic car. And it kind of brings me around to exactly my point, because at the end of his study, he talks about how the total lifetime CO2 emissions are 35 to 42 metric tons for the electric vehicle and 50 to 53 for the gas vehicle. Now, there's not a huge separation there. You know, when you're selling millions of vehicles, that'll make a big difference. Yeah. But the part that's being left out is that if your engine is getting tired at 135,000 miles, it can be disassembled and have new bearings and rings put in it.
Right.
And you're right back where you were before. However, with an electric vehicle, let's say that your battery pack has gone bad.
Right.
Toyota is going to take the whole thing out and throw it in the trash and put a whole new one in. And in the very beginning of his study, he just said straight up, the environmental impact of producing the battery pack is about 9 metric tons of CO2 emissions.
Right.
And so to replace that battery pack, you're now tacking that on wholesale. You're not looking at the entire life of the vehicle. You are looking at, I need a new battery pack. I am going to just take this pollutant and tack it right on.
Exactly.
And that changes things quite a bit.
It does.
You know, and there are things that we can do to combat that. I had customers before I left the automotive industry who were buying up old, is it Priuses or Prii?
Moose or meese?
He was buying up the old Prius models that had battery problems.
Okay.
And he was taking them apart in his home shop.
Oh, wow. He's brave.
It is a bank of cells, right?
Yeah.
And instead of just replacing that entire bank of cells, he was going through and testing each cell individually, finding one that was underperforming and replacing that cell.
Oh, look at that.
And bringing that battery pack back up to 85 or 90% of where it was when it was new.
Interesting. I didn't see a single thing about that.
It is a very grassroots movement still.
Oh, wow. That seems like it would be the thing to do, wouldn't it?
It does. It's this interesting, you know, grassroots industry that started to pop up on a very local level.
Wow.
I have no doubt that you can jump on eBay and see people selling refurbished Prius batteries and that sort of thing. But if you look around enough, there is going to be someone in your area that is doing this, because it's not just lucrative, which it is.
Yeah.
It is lucrative, but I like that people are doing it, because I feel like they're people who are seeing a need and filling a need.
Yeah. Good for them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think they deserve every penny that they can make off of doing stuff like that, if they're doing it right.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. If the battery shorts out and, you know, catches your backseat on fire, then I'm not down with that.
Yeah. That's another problem that I didn't even think about till now. Lithium is highly reactive.
Yeah. Very reactive.
Yeah. Case in point, when Richard Hammond crashed the first Rimac prototype in season 2 of the Grand Tour, it burned for like a week. And they just basically had to let it burn itself out, because that lithium, once it's going, and it's a chain reaction, because as one cylinder burns, it compromises the next, and then the next, and then the next.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's so reactive that once you compromise the next cell next to it, it's just a chain reaction.
Yeah.
You know, and you can douse it with enough water to put it out. But it takes a ton. We're probably, the more we see electric vehicles and lithium battery packs and things like that, we're probably going to start seeing advancements in, chemical fire suppression that firemen need to carry along in case it's a hybrid or an electrical fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's a whole different ballgame there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's sort of like you don't throw water on a grease fire.
Right.
You have a real hard time if you're throwing water on an electrical vehicle fire because then you just have these cells that you're now shorting out with your water.
Right. Because the cells are reactive to water. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all kinds of stuff that you never really think about.
Yeah.
We've got people talking about the graphene batteries and we're already using graphene in batteries now. We're enhancing the anodes of lithium ion batteries with graphene. It's allowing them to have higher, thermal, load capabilities. It's allowing them to have faster, charge and discharge, which of course we need.
Yeah.
But we're still using those raw materials.
Right.
And we need to find a better way of doing something with them.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And interestingly enough, everybody's heard about, the British government passing a law about trying to basically eliminate internal combustion engines from being on the roads. And I don't remember all the details around it, but, I want to say it was by like 2030, all government vehicles would be electric or alternative powered in some way, shape or form. And then just within the last like week or two, an article popped up on one of my feeds that said, hey, the British government just tossed 8.8 million pounds at hydrogen fuel cell research.
Ooh,
and I went, they're still doing that?
Yeah. Hydrogen is still, I still think that that's something that's out there and it's a really great idea.
Yeah.
The problem with hydrogen right now is that when we make it on a mass scale, we are basically pulling it from natural gas.
Yeah.
And of course you've got the byproducts of that, the nitrogen, the carbon and whatever. And that's just being released.
Right.
And we're not really doing anything about it.
Yeah. That's not good.
I remember years ago, Honda came up with a home generator concept that had natural gas plugged into it. And it would produce electricity. It would produce hydrogen. And then one of their features was they had a pipe that would go down, I don't remember, 30, 40, 50 feet. And the nitrogen and the carbon were expelled through that. That was the exhaust.
Oh, wow.
And of course, just going into the dirt like that. Nitrogen is something that you have to add to soil when you're planting a garden. Right. And so essentially, you're forcing it into the ground and filtering it that way. I use air quotes around filtering, I have no doubt that there are some unforeseen downsides and things like that.
There always are.
I like those concepts. I think it speaks to the type of person I am politically because every time I see one of these things that's like produce your own energy at home, I'm going, heck yeah. Yeah. The only utility I need is natural gas. Perfect.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just not convinced with the electric vehicle market. The British government tossing a bunch of money at hydrogen fuel cell research. I was listening to an episode of Spike's Cars and Coffee the other day. I think it's an older episode, but it was the one where they were
Spike's Car Radio.
Spike's Car Radio. Yeah. Sorry. He always calls it Cars and Coffee, like downloadable Cars and Coffee or whatever. So whatever. That's on him.
Thanks for nothing, Spike.
So they were at Jerry Seinfeld's hangar full of cars. A really great episode. And towards the end of the episode, Mr. Seinfeld said something along the lines of like, without a bit of hesitation, he says, hydrogen turbines are the future of the automotive industry. Like without question. Like that was his thought on the matter. And I was like, I had not even thought of that. So now, I also heard about, Polaris. They build ATVs, motorcycles. They used to produce Victory. They're going to be producing, Indian now.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. They shut down the Victory sector to produce Indian.
Fascinating.
Yes. So a few years back, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, Polaris, had an opportunity to acquire an electric motorcycle company. And I want to say it's called Brembo or something close to that. I will find out for sure. And put it up on the website or Facebook or something for you guys. But, the interesting thing I heard was that Harley Davidson was going to come alongside them in that venture. And then Harley Davidson backed out.
Really?
Yeah. So granted, Harley Davidson has a much more tough guy image, for lack of a better term, to uphold.
And a very robust following as well.
Yes. Yeah. So that's probably mostly the reason. But at the same time, as I was doing all of this, research and reading, I couldn't help but feel like the axis might be tipping a little bit here. Like we might be on the verge of a shift of some kind. I don't know what. But it'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Keep my ear to the ground on that.
Well, I like the idea of the turbines too. People have been trying to do that for a long time. We had the turbine car from the 50s.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's a fun video.
Yeah. We'll find it.
It's great. Website. Yeah, for sure.
They said that thing could run on anything, and get pretty decent fuel economy doing it. People would complain about, the acceleration being super sluggish. However, if you find the right video where they talk to the engineers of that prototype, they talk about how if you held the brake and the gas down and let that turbine get up to 50, 60,000 RPMs and then release the brake, it would out accelerate anything of the day.
Yeah.
So the power is there. I've seen some prototypes of generators being run by very small, almost hobby-sized turbines.
Oh, yeah.
And that way you can use a much smaller battery pack, something that gives you like a 40 or a 50 mile range on a charge, air quotes. But then as you're rolling down the road, you can have this gas turbine that fires up. Well, gas, natural gas, hydrogen. I mean, really anything you want to run it on.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Right.
Oxygen, acetylene turbine.
Maybe.
Yeah. Pour some nail polish in it.
Yeah. Pour some acetone in there and see what happens.
Exactly. But there's a lot of different directions that we can go. And, the future may not be with just one technology. It may be just a combination of everything.
It might be.
We could be looking at the stepping stones, the building blocks for what we're going to have.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think my biggest kind of light bulb here is you keep hearing the barrier is money. It's cost. It costs too much to recycle the batteries. Hydrogen fuel cells cost too much to really be a viable option. And I'm thinking to myself, you can't take it with you, right? Like, why not? If you've got the money, why not put it towards something that could literally change the face of the planet? And I'm talking a legacy here that would be like nothing ever seen before.
Well, but we can't dictate that.
Right.
People have worked hard to have what they have, and they get to do with what they would like. I have a little different approach on it because history tells us that when we get in these situations, and especially with the real technological revolution, even going back to the Industrial Revolution, when you have a handful of people who are actively trying to solve these problems, they see the need and they fill the need.
Yeah.
That is when revolutions happen.
Yeah.
You look at Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Bill Gates, obviously go back even further, because the space race was on.
Yeah.
And even though that was a government program, we can't discount or discredit the work that was done by those scientists.
Oh, absolutely.
And the leaps and bounds that were made in technology that we use every day. You know, I'm old enough to remember when Ronald Reagan had the Star Wars program that everybody called it and how stupid it was. But we are getting, you know, lasers out of that even now that can target specific areas of the body to eliminate cancer and things.
Oh, yeah. That's a really cool innovation there.
And it just goes to show you never really know where this stuff is going to end up. It starts out as a military technology and it ends up helping save people's lives.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same way with stuff like this. You've got a person who is tinkering in their garage and they make some type of random discovery because they've been working off of the backs of other people in that field, not necessarily in the industry, but just people who had an interest in it and tried to take a deep dive and understand it better. I think that the innovations are going to come out of smaller shops. I'm not saying that Honda, Nissan, Toyota aren't going to make some leaps.
Right.
But I think the big changes in technology that we need are going to come from the much smaller private sector.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's because, it probably has to do with the fact that those are the people who are putting their hearts into it.
Exactly.
They're not doing it because this is my job and I just happen to work for this company in this field and this is what I've been assigned to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really interesting and powerful stuff. I'm really glad that you did this deep dive. I think
thanks for letting me.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a little intense.
It's a little bit dark to know, you know, how much of an impact this stuff has, where it's basically a wash.
Yeah.
You have your electric vehicle and you feel better about yourself.
Right.
But given where our power comes from now.
Yeah.
And what it took to produce that vehicle, it really is a wash.
Yeah. And the article that we mentioned that we are going to put up, because it is really well written. The guy is obviously supportive of electric vehicles. And I think he has a good reason. He basically lays out the scenario where, if we can 100% recycle the batteries and if we can recharge our electric vehicles on 100% renewable energy, then the carbon footprint would be zero. But that is, to me, that is a very high reaching goal. I mean, that is a perfect world scenario.
The probability of that can't even be calculated. I mean, he's taking a scientific approach, but that's not a very scientific assumption to make.
No.
And, you know, that's why as car people, we're able to kind of stop and make the educated assumption of, now, hang on a second, you know, cars don't just go to the landfill at 135,000 miles. That's just not the way it works.
Yeah.
You know, that's the first owner and what they're going to put on it.
Right.
And then everything after that. And then you're not taking into account, you know, when these cars go, they don't necessarily go into a landfill. Right. You know, they go into, recycling centers or they go to a junkyard where they can bring new life to an old vehicle. And, that, I gotta be honest, that I think right now, I'm not talking about it's the end all solution, but I'm talking about right now. Yeah. If you want to make an environmental impact, keep those cars running.
Yeah.
If you truly are the type of person where you stop and you think to yourself, I need to drive something that makes a difference and has a very low carbon footprint, your only option is to keep that old clunker running.
Right.
And running in good condition, by the way, not burning a whole ton of oil.
Well, yeah.
but keeping that thing going for 300, 400,000 miles. Yep. That is how you reduce the overall carbon footprint of that vehicle.
Right. Yeah. Excellent point.
Well, so we've done our booze and we've done our boost. I think it's time for a little barbecue.
Yeah.
Now, I was talking to you a little earlier about Easter, and you've got a pretty sweet setup this Easter where you are just opening your house.
Yeah.
And then other people are
going to handle the food. So, nothing too intense on my end, but you were telling me about what you've got going on for Easter. And I'm starting to wonder, would anybody notice if I wasn't there and showed up at Andy's house instead? So tell us about that.
Well, we've got some pretty interesting stuff going on. Again, if you're just tuning in, we are recording this a little bit early. Easter's tomorrow. But don't worry, because we will have plenty of photos and maybe even a little bit of video of some of the stuff that we're making here. We are, of course, because we've got a whole load of chickens, we are doing deviled eggs, undoubtedly.
Oh, yeah.
And they are going to be amazing.
Yep.
I was kind of thinking about maybe taking some of those hard-boiled eggs and smoking them for a bit before we make them into deviled eggs.
Ooh.
We'll see.
That'd be a fun experiment. Yeah.
At the very least, there's going to be some bacon infusion that's happening there.
Oh, yeah.
I would really like to make them spicy, but my family, aside from my wife and I, doesn't really do spicy that much. My mom does because she's very Southern, but she really can't anymore.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Cause the spicy food's a little hard on the system, but, probably just going to do the deviled eggs in a fun and funky way. And then I went ahead and got a couple of rabbits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought, this year Easter is on April Fool's Day.
Yep.
And it's time to get a little bit funky. So I found a local supplier of meat rabbits. And these are gorgeous animals. They were well butchered. They're big. They're 5 pounds a piece, 6 pounds a piece. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a spatchcock style. We're going to split them. I don't know if I'm going to completely have them, but they're going to be laid flat.
Okay.
And we're going to keep it pretty simple on the rub, salt, pepper, onion, garlic.
Okay.
Brown sugar.
Ooh.
We may get a little bit herby, do kind of a thyme, basil, sage thing. Because rabbit, for those who have had rabbit in the past, for the most part, the recipes call for it to be braised or, boiled or cooked down in some way like that, because it's a very, very lean animal. Very lean.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think you described it best. You said rabbit has kind of a pork consistency, but almost like a chicken flavor.
Yeah.
And these will be no different, but there are some subtle differences that make rabbit a really nice meat to cook with.
Yeah.
It really is. People don't traditionally think about rabbit.
No.
But you have older recipes that call for rabbit and fowl and quail and things like that. And so you have to kind of roll it back a little bit, think about some of the flavors that they were using in the 1700s, 1800s.
That sounds like fun.
Oh yeah. And then, dash it with a little bit of smoke and char, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to do those 2 rabbits up. We've got them brining in the fridge right now. Just a salt bath.
Yeah.
And then, we also got an uncured, smoked ham. But if you're anything like me, you know that the smoked hams, I'm using air quotes around smoked hams, because they're smoked, but there's not a lot of flavor in there.
Yeah.
They're fully cooked, but it doesn't really taste like a whole lot to me. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to rub that thing down. It's already been spiral sliced, which is good news because you're going to get a lot of penetration with the flavors.
Yeah.
We're going to rub it down with Dijon mustard, and then I'm going to pat it down with brown sugar. And then probably every half hour, 45 minutes, I'm going to pop the lid and spritz it down with pineapple juice.
Oh my gosh.
And then
my mouth is watering.
Probably somewhere about 2/3 into the smoke, I'm going to wrap it for a little bit and just pour some pineapple juice into the tin foil and wrap it and let it just sit and
kind
do
of
its
steam
thing.
up in there a little bit.
Right, exactly. Just make sure that we finish warming all the way through to the center because this is a bone-in ham.
Oh, that's true.
And then we're just going to unwrap it, probably throw some more coals on to up the temp a bit and just start glazing. Just start glazing the outside of it. Try to get this nice sugar crust on the outside.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That sounds so good.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And, our traditional sides, we're probably going to do some cornbread over the fire and some mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
And some fun stuff like that. I'd really like to get some of those Rainbow Heritage carrots.
Oh, those are so much fun.
They are.
Yeah.
And when you cook them on a grill, especially if you're doing them over coals, they pick up some of the nicest flavors and they get sweet. And I love cooked carrots. It's a southern thing, I guess.
Yeah,
but
I do too. You know what's good with cooked carrots? If you drizzle them with a little bit of oil. I use butter. Cause why not?
I use bacon fat because
bacon fat would also be delicious. And then you also drizzle them with some honey and sriracha.
Ooh.
I get that like spicy, sweet thing going on. It's good. And then you just roast them in the oven or you could put them over the coals, I guess.
They're a little bit spicy, honey glazed.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that idea. I'll do a little bit of spicy on mine. Of course, I can't do that for everybody, but I was thinking, we need to do a little, like finishing the carrots with some maple syrup and, like you said, butter, maybe a little brown sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a recipe that called for creme fraiche on the side. And creme fraiche, is a little bit like sour cream, but it's a little bit, I would call it more like sour cream meets cream cheese.
Yeah.
2/3 sour cream, 1/3 cream cheese. For anybody that hasn't had it.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like it.
Yeah. And just do a little dollop of that on the top when you present it.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'm not very good at plating, but I always like trying to find some fun way to plate this stuff up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we'll see how it all goes. Hopefully I'm not overdoing it because that is something that I tend to do. I tend to overdo it. Well, you remember the Super Bowl party. We had wings. That's true. Ribs.
There was food everywhere.
Oh yeah. Deviled eggs. Yeah. Bacon.
Well, I think that's why people love Super Bowl parties, really. And people who don't even watch football love Super Bowl parties. It's because there's always really good food.
Exactly.
For like 4 hours.
Exactly. Well, and look, if you're coming over to my house, you better be ready to eat because we're going to have some food.
Yes.
And with that, I'm hungry. So
me too.
We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Ham. Yeah, that's right. We're going to wrap this up so I can have some more of this delicious beer and get something to eat.
Yeah.
Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. I'm glad to be here.
And
thanks for listening to me.
Oh, no, I love it. It's a little bit depressing, but, you know what, listeners, next episode we'll get you.
Yes.
We'll have some fun with it.
We'll bounce back with the next one.
Absolutely. 100%. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for telling a friend, a family member, spreading the good word and just being able to support us as we go along on this journey. We can't thank you enough. Facebook.com/BoostBoostBarbecue, BoostBoostBarbecue.com. That's where you're going to find articles about the topics that we've discussed.
Yep.
Photos from the shows, things like that. So feel free to head on over there. Check us out. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the Facebook. Joe, what is your Twitter?
I am at Joe Frisco, capital J, capital F.
There it is. I'm going to get Twitter going here pretty soon.
Yeah.
And oh boy, the Patreon, man.
Yeah.
We're a little ways out on the Patreon still, but we've got some super fun stuff. I just got some spark plug gappers, which in my opinion, everybody needs to have one of those in their glove box. They're easy to use. We're not pulling spark plugs on vehicles these days quite as much as we used to.
Right.
But any of our listeners that have a performance vehicle, if you've got a turbocharged vehicle, you're pulling those plugs once in a while.
I'm pointing at myself right now.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. You are checking those plugs because the plugs can tell you so much about what's going on.
Yeah.
We'll do a deep dive into that in these episodes down the road. Quick shout out to Ugly Drum Smokers, Texas.
Yes.
We can't thank those guys enough for their support.
Yeah.
Stephen Powell, you're the best.
Yes.
And to Core Balance Brewing Supply, thanks for doing what you guys do.
Yep.
And make sure to head on over to their website and check them out. Their Facebook, they can just be found under Core Balance Brewing Supply. And let those guys know where you heard about them.
Yeah.
Heard about it from us? Go ahead and just tell them. Booze, Booze, and Barbecue.
Yep.
So thanks so much, you guys. Have a fantastic Easter. And until next time, this is Andy.
And this is JoJo.
And we will see you next time. Boost, Booze, and Barbecue.